I love this stuff.
What is it?
It's a running gag, but yeah, it's called Topo Chico. I just found out about it in post. And like now everybody bring bottles of it like it's a joke.
But what?
It's carbonated water from Mexico. It's really good. We can talk about it when we off the clock. You know, I promise you I ain't got no sponsorship or nothing. I love it and it's perfect for like post.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I do that.
Yeah.
Each other was actually at your premiere.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And foremost, congrats. It's doing what all of us knew it was going to do. Sitting in there and I was with my son, and my son's name is Toussaint, and it was really beautiful. Obviously he wasn't named after young T'Challa, but it was really beautiful to be there to see the work, to see the way that you honored Chadwick, certainly, but also how you continued the story. I loved that it was Shuri's story, and I love the fact that in that huge platform, you were able to deal so personally and tell such a personal story and have such depth about what grief really means.
I appreciate it. It was good to see you there and your son, and me knowing it's a movie about motherhood, for me more than anything, it was just, I got really emotional. I was trying to hold it in. I'm happy to just be here talking with you. You know, obviously we talked about what your movies mean to me and to my wife and to my friends. You know, they mean the world, and to see you on this scale. You know, I was born in the 80s, and like when I was going to movies on my own, I was going to see like Gladiators, the Bravehearts, you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of scope.
An evil is coming that threatens our kingdom, but we have a weapon.
It felt like a very personal story. It felt like in many ways you maybe made your most personal film. You know?
Which is weird on this type of canvas.
Yeah, knowing you and knowing your previous work, and I just felt very proud of you. Like to see it, and happy that this film exists now. You know, like I look forward to watching it. You know what I mean? Like in years to come. Feel like that kind of movie. You know what I mean? Like that you'll sit down and. I don't know how you did it, to be honest, like to make something that feels historical but still fresh and new, and it feels very empowering and educational but yet fun and exciting, you know. I was moved by it.
No, I felt blessed by this group of actors, because it's not only that they all have incredible chops, but they're so passionate about the work, their work ethic.
Yeah.
They're such good people, and I mean, certainly what we do is really hard. To be able to have people, actors that have your back, that are in this journey with you, that respect the process and the work, like it's everything. And especially once you start working in this bigger sandbox and all the other stuff that comes with that, to be able to go back at the end of the day, it's about performance and it's about your relationship with the actors. I mean, you look at your squad, and that's an extraordinary group as well.
We fight not just for today, but for the future. We are the spear of victory!
Like, how long was this process for you? Like, when did you know this was your movie, that this was your next thing?
I had just come off of Old Guard, and that was 2 years of my life. And it's hard. I was away from my boys, my husband, and so I said after, I'm taking a break.
That was the worst words I ever say as a working director, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I made a promise. I'm not gonna do it again until they're out of high school.
Yeah.
And then the script came, and it was everything I feel like my whole career's been building toward. And as you talked about those movies that you saw in the 80s, like I love those. Those were like the films for me, but I never saw us in them. And it really was my goal, even back then, I want to make a historical epic with us. And now here it was, and I remember reading it and loving it and saying, damn, I gotta let this one go. But I sent it to my husband. He's always the one that I send everything to, and he read it, and I remember like—
Reggie Rock.
Yeah, Reggie Rock. 2 hours later, because I think that's how long it took, he texted me, said, here's your next movie. And that was everything. I loved everything about it. I loved the historical aspect of it. I loved these female characters. I remember reading these women rise up out of the grasses, and I saw it, you know, in my head. I knew how I wanted to shoot this.
The opening set piece.
Yeah, and I knew who I wanted in it. The fact that Viola Davis was attached, the opportunity to touch greatness, like how often do we get to do that? And that's what she is. I knew I wanted Lashana immediately, knew I wanted John Boyega. And I felt like I knew how to do this film also coming off the Old Guard and the action in that.
And so when was this? Like what year was this?
I was at the end of post on Old Guard, so that was, damn, I should know this, 2019?
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
So about a 2.5, 3 year journey for you, this one.
Yeah, and it took Viola and Julius and Kathy, the producers, like 7 years to get this thing set up and greenlit. And
I see Maria Bello's name sometimes.
yeah, it's crazy. She's the one, she went to Benin and heard about the story and came back and pitched it to Viola. I know, first time when I saw it, I was like, wait, Maria Bello, how is she part of it?
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing of disrupting, disrupting genres. And that's, that's what Black Panther did. Like on this whole press tour, I love talking about what you did because like your success, not even the success of Black Panther, but what you did with it and how you told the story and how you infused us and culture and depth in it absolutely opened the door for this film. I don't know that Woman King would be made if you didn't do what you did with Black Panther.
That's heavy. That's an honor to just hear that. But I gotta be honest with you, like I grew up watching your movies. I've told you this, so if it's any way that's how it worked, I'm paying it forward, I always loved, just the safety that some of your work as a director, it presents characters like in a safe space. Even in Love and Basketball, man, like when those two characters on the court with each other, the prom night scene with Maxwell, like it feels like you get to lean in and get comfortable and like watch these people open up. You've done it in all your films, and I think that for this one, it's almost like archetypal characters, like the general, the wisecracking second in command, you know what I mean? Like the young trainee upstart who you watch on the journey, and the confidant. These are characters that they exist in these types of movies. To see it played by these Black women that I feel like I recognize, and to see them in the moments where they swinging the swords and they doing the training montages, but to also see it in those quiet moments. I'm like, oh yeah, that's that same feeling I got when I was watching these other films. I think you made something that's unique. I think this movie's gonna age really well as well. It feels timeless that way.
Yeah, thank you.
I offer you a choice. Fight or we die.
Now, the first time we met was when I came to see Fruitvale Station. Sundance had invited me to come. It was just a small group of us. And that, I don't like crying in public, but literally was the ugly cry in that. And I was so excited to meet you because what you did with that film and the depth of it, if you look at your body of work, like every film that you've done has shifted culture, which is kind of phenomenal. And the way that you center Black men and Black masculinity and show it in different ways and kind of go against what so many of us are, grow up with thinking it should be. And that's a really powerful thing in every single one of your films. And even, up to obviously this one that you just did, obviously the women are centered, but still T'Challa is so much a part of it. As directors, we're our first audience, but in terms of those stories that you want to put and focusing on Black men and what I said about Black masculinity, is that something intentional that you want to see, or is it that we don't get to see that, so you want to be the one putting that into the world? I
thought that I wanted to make things that I could relate to, movies that I would want to see. Mm-hmm. Each time I make a movie, I'm dealing with my own personal fears. I've been fortunate enough to be able to start from the script. Mm-hmm. In these cases, sometimes Fruitvale I was on my own, but in the other films I was blessed to have co-writers. Oftentimes it comes back to man, what are we afraid of? You know what I mean? What's our biggest fear? In these movies, the characters are oftentimes wrestling with that. In Fruitvale, sadly, the character's worst fear gets realized. In Creed, it's all about fear. That one, the fear of not realizing your potential before it's too late, is what the character's really wrestling with. And in this one, from the male perspective, it was probably more in conversation with Fruitvale than anything. This idea of being a man who has a lot of people counting on him, and what happens if you're taken away from those people, and how do they pick up the pieces? That was a big thing, and we were living it with Chadwick Boseman passing away. We were trying to figure out what it meant and what's the best way forward, and at the same time still in a lot of pain. That question of masculinity, specifically Black masculinity, for me it was just about making something that was honest to me emotionally each time, and me as a Black man having an opportunity in the same way that you as a Black woman have an opportunity to make these movies, the specificity comes through if we're doing something that's honest.
I am queen of the most powerful nation, and my entire family is gone.
I gotta tell you, man, like my family, we all athletes, like as a lot of us are in inner cities, you know. But man, we quote them scenes from Love and Basketball. Like we quote them like as a family, you know, like Gucci and Gold, like the most random scenes, you know, because we connected with it, you know. It felt honest. It felt like something that's so rare, you know, like in the world of cinema, you know. And I feel like with Woman King, you just got scene after scene after scene after scene of things I've never seen before, you know. But at the same time, it felt familiar, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want you to talk about that. Like, at what point did you realize that you were making something like that hadn't been done before? Was it when you read the script, or was it when y'all was into the work? Like, at what point did you realize?
I mean, certainly when I read it, knowing, damn, we get to center Black women in a story like this, and the fact that this was a story that in history that had been erased, and how often that happens with us. The fact that so many of us grow up being taught that our history begins with enslavement, and not like there's so much more to us. So I knew like centering that was going to be different, but it wasn't. I think it was once we started rehearsal, and for us, rehearsal was the training. I had these women in training for months because I wanted them to do their own fighting and stunts, and to be able to feel what it feels like to be a warrior on a molecular level. I mean, you and I were athletes. Like, we grew up, we know what that feels like. These women had never done that before. So it's not just, oh, I can act and do that. I want you to feel what it feels like. And it was in that training. I remember walking in the first day, and it was Viola, Tuso, Lashana, and Adrian. And I just remember watching them and feeling like, damn, I've never seen this before, and getting so excited to know that that was gonna be every day. And the way that they were connecting with who these women were on an ancestral level, like it was that deep for them. The conversations that we were having, everybody kind of felt like, God, we get to honor them and put them up on screen and tell their story, their forgotten story. We knew it felt special to us, and so every day putting in that work, you know, on this level, it's like, it's so much work and pressure, but it was like, we gotta get it right for them. And when you have a cause bigger than yourself, like, that's the beauty of what we do, when that can drive us, as opposed to just focusing on the pressure or the schedule or the money or the budget, you know, all of that. Now we get to tell their story and tell it with the scope and the epicness that the story deserves. That it just felt good every day.
They will not stop until the whole of Africa is theirs.
You shot on the continent.
Yeah, had to.
In South Africa.
Yeah, wanted feet in the soil. But also what was beautiful is the crew. You know, I could only bring my department heads. So everybody on set was so passionate that we got to tell the story. And that's, like, again, to go to work as hard as this was, I'm not gonna lie, it was a brutal shoot.
Yeah.
But there was so much beauty in it. It was the most diverse crew I've had in my entire career. And it was just beautiful to walk on set every day. And not only in shooting like these big epic battles, but in the, you know, when we were shooting the stuff with the Barracoons of Izogi and Nawi, how tough that was for those actors. These are actors that feel everything, like everything. And so the respect that they showed, and Lashana talks about that, like being able to look out and know that, okay, they understand, you know, what I'm going through. We don't always have that, but that's what the vibe was definitely on set.
Yeah, how'd you approach yeah, because I thought the cinematography in it was amazing.
Yeah,
you know,
Polly
like,
Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it your first time working together? Or?
Yeah, first time. We clicked on just how we wanted to tell a story. I think we clicked on two women being able to tell the story, to work in this genre, to do it together. I knew I wanted this intimately epic feel to it.
Intimately epic.
Yeah, that was my thing.
Yeah.
But also, for real, and it was like my mandate to her. I need these women to be shot more beautifully than they ever have. And it just came from, obviously, historically seeing us being shot really poorly. And literally, before I shot this, I went to see this really big movie that one of our women was in. And I was like, oh my God, you can't see her. Like, how does that happen on this level? So,
got it.
You know, and it shouldn't just be because, you know, we want our folk, like everybody should have that. So that was kind of the connection that we had.
You're asking me to take them to war. War.
Some things are worth fighting for.
Just the production design. Like seeing, I remember the first time seeing these cities, you know, like the port and the capital city of Dahomey. Who was your production designer?
Akeem McKenzie.
Oh, Akeem, I know Akeem.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that dude, his mind is special. He was, more than anybody, he and I did the biggest deep dive into the research.
Right.
And again, because we're world building and
Yeah.
there's so few pictures, there's sketches, but, and the beauty of what Akeem did for me is help me start the process of separating the history that was told from oppressor's point of view, which just had this desire to dehumanize us. Like, that's not real. Let's look at this stuff. Just to see the way that they're described by the colonizers. They talked about these women as being ugly and mannish and savage, whereas, you know, when you're talking to people who are ancestors, they talk about the beauty of the kingdom, the colors, how the strength of these women, the fact that there was this equality between men and women within the kingdom. And so then to be able to infuse that into the script and just, against a historical epic, like you want as much truth as possible, so just putting as much as we can. But yeah, Keen and his world building, like we built the whole palace. I remember being able to, I just wanted to give the actors this 360 environment, given it's the 1800s. I didn't want them to see cars or planes up ahead or look out and see something crazy. And they loved it. It broke my heart because they tore it down right after we shot, like this incredible thing.
Who are you?
My people call me Kungkan, but my enemies call me Namor.
Black Panther 2 is huge. It's a huge movie, and the world building is so special. And here you're creating these two new worlds. That yes, in Black Panther you did start the process, but this, everything just got bigger. And I'm curious in approaching world building this way. Like, is it all starting in your mind? Like, this is what I want, this underwater world, or where do you start to create a world like that?
It's not at all dissimilar, like how you're talking about your collaboration. It's with other people. We working with existing material and a lot of years of, you know, decades of material of Black Panther, you know, in Wakanda in the comics, and also in Marvel's rendition of Atlantis in publishing, you know, so you have like a visual tapestry, you know, to pull from. But then once we making the movie, it is a lot of research, a lot of questions about like what would it really be like if it existed. And the theme of colonization you were mentioning, it runs through our films as well. And we decided that we would have our films be in conversation with the colonization of the continent of Africa and global colonization, exploitation of peoples for resources. You know, our film was always gonna be in conversation with that idea. And when we decided to expand in Black Panther 2 and have Wakanda be juxtaposed with another hidden place, you know, that was when we looked to the Americas, you know, like, because colonization came here as well, with some results that were similar, some results that were different, and that was kind of the lens that we kind of looked for some cultural specificity for this new group of people.
Yeah.
And that was how we landed on the Mayan people and having their culture be inspired by the culture of that specific group of people. You know, we wanted to give people something that could exist that was different from that first one, but still felt like it was telling the same story, you know.
Yeah, the beauty of your work, certainly with these two Black Panthers, is like you don't make it easy. Like you have these, you know, the quote unquote villain, but the way that you created his backstory, that scene was so beautiful, him as a kid, and to see, and you're putting us as an audience into what happened to him, what happened to his whole people. And so now I'm in a position of rooting for them, which is different. Usually people want things simple and black and white, you know, but I think is what makes your work so special is you don't make it easy, and the humanity that you gave to both Killmonger and certainly to Namor is, you know, that's what the beauty of the film is.
I look at the movies as like time spent, you know, like I'm always thinking about myself in the seat at a theater, like, you know, I'm usually at a certain age, you know what I mean? And I love when all of the time spent, both with the protagonist and the antagonist is like good time. Like The Dark Knight, for instance, you know, that film, the Joker's a bad dude, but I'm looking forward to him getting on screen. Same thing with like the Terminator 2, like the liquid metal dudes. He's evil, but you're looking forward to seeing him because he's cool. And for these films, I mean, we know that, like, in addition to trying to tell a story, we know that there's like a thirst there, like an appetite for something that's been denied, not just for Black people, or for people who are of Mesoamerican or indigenous descent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think for everybody, because like this history is human history. You know what I mean? Like, these people they us, like they're still walking around here. They are friends, they are relatives, they are colleagues, you know, knowing there's an appetite for that. I would never want to use the antagonist who's gonna take up, you know, half the time of this movie in a way that's belligerent or not three-dimensional or in a way that you can't identify with. And for our film, it's a geopolitical thriller, but it was always about a fight that I didn't want the audience to see this fight. You know what I'm saying? I thought that would be a trickier thing to pull off, but also a more real thing to pull off. You know, like I think that most combat is like that. I don't want to see Russia and Ukraine going back and forth. Like I don't want to see these things, because when you look at it on a human level, you know, it's not just about the politicians that's doing X, Y, and Z, it's about the human beings that's doing this to each other, and a lot of times they're forced to. So for us, it was like, you know, how can we tell a story that's about us, colored people who've been affected by this thing, who've been denied imagery, you know, who've been denied opportunity to tell their stories. You know, it's gonna be tricky showing us in conflict with each other, but how can we do it in a way where you're not rooting for anybody? You know, so you're actually rooting for it to stop. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of the goal for us.
Because when I was watching, it was like, damn, we're fighting each other, and I'm rooting for figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, so that we could come together and fight, you know, the real enemy. So that's deep. Creative control. Again, your films are so, first of all, every film you've done has been great.
I appreciate
Like,
the kind
great.
words. Likewise.
And I know to do that, it's a fight. It's a constant fight for vision. And you jumped into that big sandbox earlier than I did, but I hope and feel like that fight that you had to get Fruitville done, to get Creed, and what you did with Creed, man. Like you just came and took a franchise, you know? Do you feel like you have to constantly fight for your vision even now?
I think so, but I've been fortunate each time I have collaborators that I could get on the same page with. So I approach it with like a collaborative mindset, and I also know like that as the budgets get bigger, it's like more at stake, you know what I'm saying? Like I never want to be the guy who's like, hey, give me $200 million and let me do what I want with this. Like I never wanted to have that pressure, and I never had that expectation for myself, you know what I'm saying? If you got a specific vision, if you got something to say as an artist, you always got to get people in line with that, you know? Like it's never just like easy. When it's all said and done, like I've seen your movies, and it's there. Like you know, with each leap. I mean, this is your biggest one, probably scope wise. Like, I don't know the budget for All Guard. I know it has some big scenes in it. It's big actors in it too. But this felt the biggest to me. It felt like you, you know, like it just did. Like, so I think that idea of creative control, it seemed like you had it here. You know, it don't feel any less a Gina movie than Love and Basketball did, or Beyond the Lights. You know what I'm saying? Like, my feeling towards it is, I walk into situations with my eyes open, head up, and I make sure that the person who's in power that I'm walking into it, I can see eye to eye with, or I feel like we can get on a level. If me and Stallone if I didn't feel like we could see eye to eye, I wouldn't have walked into it. But it felt like we could. Like, how have you managed to navigate it? Because I mean, this movie felt insanely personal to me. Like, I remember the scene when they walk home from that first battle we seen, and people can't look at them. Like, it's rude, they not to gaze at them. And I thought about so many things. Like, I thought about how culturally, you know, it's known, and Malcolm X has talked about this idea of the black woman and the cultural disrespect that's thrust on them, or the fact that anybody can look at them and see them however, you know. So I thought about that. I was like, man, they can't, you know, they gotta avert their eyes, you know what I'm saying? But then I thought, maybe there's a flip side to that. Maybe people should see these women and how powerful they are. And you had that conversation with her later when she goes up to the kid, and just like looks at, like lets the kid see her, you know, and then they had that barrier where they can come in and they can be safe and they can be looked at, you know. And so I thought it was all of these things. I'm like, man, that's Gina, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not some corporate, that's not Sony, you know what I'm saying? Like, so how have you managed to navigate that?
Well, I love that you brought up that moment because, and also that quote, you know, from Malcolm X, the most disrespected, the most unprotected, the most neglected person in America is a black woman. Like, I've used that quote in rooms with studios, because when I go in, I know the fight it takes to center us in stories, to even get them greenlit, you know? And I say the same thing before everyone. I have to be able to look up on that screen and believe every single thing up there. So that's why I'm gonna fight for everything. And that was an interesting moment because that was something that I added to it for a couple reasons and had to fight to keep it. It was honestly, I knew going in as an audience and really for us, the first thing you're seeing is this battle and you don't understand yet why these women are fighting these men. You find out at the end of the scene, oh, they were protecting these women that had been kidnapped. But I just felt like an audience, and certainly we as an audience needed to understand that this isn't black men against black women. This is these two cultures fighting each other for a specific reason. And I needed Ezogi to come and break that, to come to this little boy, to come to this father. And so that you see, we are in this together. And that's how I had to fight it. I had to say, as a black woman who has two black boys, I know why I need this moment.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But also, yeah, the beautiful thing of these black women being so revered and how infrequently we get to feel that. And that's what this whole film was for me, to be able to put these women up on screen that you can be inspired by, inspired to be, but not just us personally, but for the world to see us in this way and hopefully see the beauty in the strength and the vulnerability, because that was a big thing as well. The humanity, you've got to show the humanity of these women and this culture. That moment means so much to me, that little thing, and Lashana killed it.